It's amazing from the weekend just gone. So much happened right from Brentford Arsenal through to Spurs against Man City, crowds back, and still Pogba manages to be one of the centres of attention. Because I was chatting to you briefly before we came on air, and I was saying anything else from the weekend, and you were kind of saying, well, like, it's amazing over in the UK, Pogba talk dominating. So you've played against him. You have this lovely perspective that Mick Richards and Souness don't necessarily have, and you'd know his weak points for sure as well, and I'm sure you plan to expose those weak points as a team, and equally you'd know how devastatingly good he is. So it's a weird one, Pogba. I feel like we talk about him too much, almost. Like, he must, I hope he manages to tune out from it. He must sometimes think, why am I like topic number one? If there's like 5 talking points from every weekend, it's like, how did Pogba play?
That's what happens when you're a global superstar, because that's what he is. He's a phenomenal player. You talk about the times I played against him. There's no real weakness. Like, he's 6'3". Like, he's quick, he's strong, right foot, left foot, good in the air, very skillful. He's got every club in the bag in terms of his range of passing. You look at like the assists. Like, the first one to Bruno was probably my favourite, where the quick ball around the corner, just to see him at a glimpse when the ball is moving, when it comes in from McTominay. Like, even the one for Greenwood, it's more of a kind of a standard pass for him, a player of his ability. But that's probably what you get with Paul Pogba. Obviously, we've all seen Micah Richards take on Souness. I've watched their argument or whatever. I know the two of them personally. I think Graham is probably from the older school. That's kind of like, you roll your socks up, you tie your boots, and you work hard. There was certainly wasn't social media in those days, but it was kind of like, there was nothing outside of football. Whereas nowadays the game has changed so much that Graham is probably the older generation where, they're not used to these players being, I'm not going to say bigger than clubs, but like
their own brands almost.
Yeah, like, it's wrong of me to say that, or for even say that Paul Pogba is bigger than Manchester United, because he's not. But Paul Pogba is his own entity. He's massive all around the world. That, like, he's looked at probably in a marketing all around the world. We saw the effect of Lionel Messi at PSG, but Pogba is similar to that. Yeah.
And David, so you get a sense when you've been on a pitch with a player, you have a deeper sense of their strengths and weaknesses than any of us looking in, these minute moments that you can only sense. The two big accusations thrown at Pogba, did you feel his work rate was so-so at times? And secondly, did you feel defensively he would lose concentration and you could sneak in behind him and he'd drift, say he was one of the holding two, he'd drift out of his area and leave Manchester United exposed? Did you sense that on the pitch? Did you see that when you were doing your pre-match analysis and going through the tapes?
Paul's not an outright holding midfielder. So he's a maverick type midfielder who wants to get on the ball, wants to get forward, wants to make things happen. If you look at the teams that he's played for in his men's career, Juventus, France and Manchester United, in large, those 3 teams should dominate possession, so he should be afforded with not having to do as much defensive, duties. Like, you always feel that you can kind of get at them. Certainly, a player like Paul, if you give him too much time and space. My way would, I grew up obviously with a GA background. My way was always kind of like, can I get into his face and get up against him and say, like, how much do you fancy this? Because if I go toe to toe with Pogba in terms of ability, I'm going to lose every day of the week. But I would then say, like, how much do you want this? Where you're elbowing and kneeing and grabbing hold of someone, and you're really trying to, a bit like Cork and Kilkenny last week when the referee's trying to throw the sliotar in. There's slapping and there's belting before the game. That's the way you have to approach fellas like him.
Typical Cork dirtiness for any UK listeners.
Yeah, I can take that.
When we're talking about Cork at the top of the show, that's what we meant. Just not. And how much? What was the answer? What was Pogba's answer, do you think, to how much did he want it?
At times you could upset him, that he would get frustrated, but other times he'd laugh you off. And when he'd laugh me off, I'd be the one who'd get more annoyed because I'm thinking, I'm not getting under his skin. I'm not frustrating him. I'm not annoying him where he can take his eye off the ball. That's like, I remember the first time I ever played against Paul Pogba would have been 2011, I'd say. 2010, 2011, I was coming back from my first knee injury, and we played the Man United on reserve team / under 23s. And all the young boys in the Sunderland change room were all raving about Pogba. Now, obviously, I was a first team player at the time coming back from injury. I hadn't heard a lot about him. I remember, like, on the pitch, I thought, wow, like, this fella has, like, he had everything that I've described to you as, I don't know how old he would have been there because we're going back a long time ago. I think he's 26, 27, probably 17, 18. He had every attribute. He had a great size. But I looked at it like, I suppose most Irish players, can we get into their faces and kind of upset them? And I always took that with me when I played against him. I knew that I couldn't afford to give him time on the ball because, look, you looked at Leeds made that. Obviously, they do their man-to-marking system. It didn't work the other day because whenever Pogba got free, he came off the left. He looked dangerous and he created so much.
And how did you get on that time 10 years ago?
We actually won 4-3. I scored.
Pogba scored a hat-trick.
No, Pogba didn't. I think he might have got one. Look, those games they were minutes in the bank for me coming back from injury. More than. Oh, look, he's always going to divide opinions because he's a maverick in terms of social media, his flamboyant hair, the way he carries himself. But when you strip all the crap away and you really look at him, he is a phenomenal player. The biggest question mark over him is his consistency.
Yes, well, that's the point. Because I think, in fairness to Souness, and I do accept your point, I do think there is a bit of the elder statesman looking on and kind of comparing it to his day and just a bit dismayed by it all. But I do think Souness is open-minded enough to go along with all the extracurricular stuff if he felt Pogba was doing it on the pitch. And I do think Souness genuinely thinks Pogba is not delivering. I do think there is definitely a genuine point of view there. He doesn't feel like Souness has said, like, with his attributes, he should be up and down the pitch making life an absolute nightmare for any midfielder trying to stick with him. He should be scoring goals. He can do everything. Like, Souness sees all the attributes but doesn't feel he delivers. You said there he's divisive. So which side of that argument do you come down on? Like, if it was to boil down to a Manchester United are better off without him or with him?
I think Manchester United are better with him. I think he's got the perfect manager. I think Ollie can put up with a lot of the nonsense. You look at the form that Pogba came back into after Mino Raiola came out, sprouting off. Like, I think Ollie is the perfect man manager for him. I think he knows how to deal with them, and he will get the best out of Pogba in a United shirt. It would be certainly interesting if Ollie wasn't to have a good run of form this year, and he ended up losing his job, and somebody else came in, like a Conte type. Would he put up with it? I don't know. That's the big thing, but that's part and parcel of being a manager. You've got to be able to manage big characters and understand them. And I think United are better with him. He seems to have turned the form in the last probably 12 to 16 months. But it's just, again, there's that massive question mark over his consistency.